Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact on the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Just take higher ground and essentially just pray. Like, that's all I can tell you. And telling those citizens that was probably one of the most gut-wrenching experiences of my life, because like I was getting calls for, family members getting swept away in floodwaters. I was getting, I had one, an elderly woman that climbed all the way to the attic of her house and the water was rising. And she said, I know I'm going to die, but I do not want to die alone.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and I am out in North Carolina. I'm currently at New Hanover County. I was teaching yesterday, but today I'm recording a shit ton of episodes, and we're going to have a lot of fun, especially with the two folks that I've been talking to here right before we started recording, and I can see them. It looks like they're trying not to laugh just a little bit already. But this is going to be fun. So my guests today are Maddie and Casey, and they are both with New Hanover County 911. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm excited already to talk. As soon as you both walked in, your energy, I was already pumped. It was like you were throwing caffeine at me through the air. So
perfect.
Thank you.
That's our goal. That's our goal.
So you two are you're currently on shift, right? As well.
Yes,
We are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I was walking around, saw you in there. What is you on 12 hours, 8 hours? Like what is the shift that you're on?
So we're on 12 hours. Mm-hmm. So our shift starts at 7 a.m. and then it ends at 7 p.m.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that okay? So 7 to 7. When I was working in dispatch, my 12 hours was 4:30 to 4:30. What would you rather do?
I don't know. See,
It depends on your home life too.
Yeah.
It depends on what you can manage.
True.
I will say that. Like if you're willing to do, it just depends on your sleep schedule, what you can manage. Everybody has a different preference though, I'll say.
And when I first started, I was on nights. So I was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then I got pregnant with my little boy. And then my director was really awesome and moved me to day shift. So I didn't have to try to tackle having a newborn and working nights. So I got very, very lucky in that aspect.
That is pretty awesome. Yeah, to be able to have that, because man, yeah, with kids and stuff. I remember when my daughter was born, my oldest daughter was born, and I was working in dispatch. Oh, it was something, because it was midnights, but also I was trying to keep that sleep schedule as well, so it kind of worked. But I remember sitting in the chair and rocking her, and like dozing off, like don't go to sleep. You got to stay awake. And then of course, as you know, you go to slowly put the child down, move your hand, and then you step back and you hit something. It's, oh, damn it, no!
And then that's a wrap. It's game over.
Yeah, it's like, all right, just make some coffee and stay awake. Well, I'm glad to be here with the both of you. And so, Maddie, I want to start with you. You've got about 6 months in the profession already. How did you get into public safety to begin with?
I went to college for public services. I started off working in a prison, talking to people one-on-one therapy-wise. And then I moved down here to Wilmington area, and they didn't have much of what was similar to mine in the prison system here. And I wanted to be helpful to my community in a different way. So I tried this out, and I've loved it ever since I've tried it. So I'm glad that it found me, or I found it, however you want to see it.
Right.
But It's definitely a switch from what I was doing. It was a lot more personal connection. And 911, we get a short amount of time with the people that we're with sometimes. So the connection has to be made faster and more intensely than the amount of time I got to spend with people before at my last job. So.
Do you feel like the transition was, maybe tough in a way, only because of that aspect where you were face to face, but now you're on the phone, it's just voice to voice. Like, was there a difference in the transition? Did you find it kind of difficult, or has it been like, it goes hand in hand?
I definitely find it a little bit more difficult because I had a little bit more hands-on with the transition of I got more of the complete story instead of just the incident of where is your emergency.
Right.
I got to figure out what happened with them and got to stay with them on their journey to help. And this time my journey kind of ends a little bit more abruptly. And so that was definitely an adjustment. But I hope I'm handling it well, I mean, I hope so.
Yeah, well, and the closure piece is a lot different as well, too, because as you were saying, you're face to face and you're doing all these different things, but you know kind of that outcome as well, because you're right there in whatever aspect. But then, when you're on the phone, it's the phone ends, the call ends, and then you wonder, unless, of course, you reach out to somebody or somebody calls you and they're able to give you that gift of closure. And man, sometimes that gift of closure is amazing.
Yes, it is. And it doesn't happen often.
That's true. Yeah, no, it doesn't happen often. I think that's one of the things that that people don't understand. Those in the general public don't understand is that doesn't happen often. It's not like on TV where you see, dispatch gets to meet the people that they help. Now, there are some people who do, right? Some people do, but it doesn't always happen. Yes.
Halle Berry.
Yeah. The last episode with Courtney, we were talking about that a little bit, where she goes, people don't understand. This isn't the call. It's not like Halle Berry. We can't take a call and then go find the person and, beat them down or whatever. Like, it doesn't work like that. So thank you, Hollywood, for doing that. I'm glad you got us out there, but not exactly the way we probably all thought that it was going to happen. Now, Casey, for you, how many years do you have in, and how did you get involved in public safety? So
I'm 5 years this November. It's been quite a roller coaster with my career aspect. Before I got into public safety, I was actually a mental health technician for a psychiatric hospital for children. So I spent a lot of time with those kids and just trying to better them, trying to give them a different perspective on life, because a lot of those children had very rough upbringings. And so they kind of made poor decisions. And I was just trying to tell them that it was a better opportunity than what they've experienced in the past out there for them. So I actually kind of stumbled across public safety because I was like, oh, this would be kind of cool. Like, I can kind of give back to my community, which is awesome. And definitely, be the phone call to help save somebody's life. Because I've had a lot of history with unfortunately, those types of situations in the psychiatric hospital with those children. So it was a really cool opportunity for me. Plus, my uncle was actually FDNY. So we kind of have a little bit of background with first responders in my family, which was pretty exciting. But I'm I'm the first dispatcher out of the family. So
yeah, well done.
Nice.
Thank you.
Do you feel like, for either one of you, do you feel like what you were doing before prepared you for what you're doing in here in the center?
I think in some ways, in some ways, in other ways, no, but in some ways, yes. My last job definitely taught me that things don't always turn out the way that you want them to. There's not always a happy ending.
Yeah.
But also there are happy endings. So that prepared me in that way. But like we talked about before, the whole getting to see it through to the end hardly ever happens. So in that way, it did not prepare me for it at all. But definitely did in other ways. So,
but when you do get that opportunity to see it through the end, it is probably one of the best feelings I've ever experienced.
Really is, yeah.
Yes.
Like we have a program here with it's called our care team, and it's out of our Health and Human Services, and they're licensed therapists that actually help with giving back to the community and giving to kind of help with the mental health crisis within our community. So we've had a lot of frequent flyers, as we call them, that are called in, that are definitely, psychiatric patients. And they've never really been given the resources that they've needed before. I mean, the officers have definitely done the best that they can, but it wasn't enough, so to speak. So when we transitioned into having the care team with our center, it was like a night and day difference. Like our frequent flyers are not calling as much now. They're able to get the resources that they need. And it's been really, from my end, from being here for 5 years, it's been great to see our frequent flyers not call as much just because they're actually getting the services that are directed towards them that they need.
That's pretty awesome.
So which has been that's been really awesome. But like Maddie was saying, you don't always get that closure.
That's true.
That is very hard to kind of, I guess, maneuver how to walk away, so to speak. Like when you walk in the doors, you come and you work, but then trying to keep that transition from your home life. Because as soon as I walk out of the doors of the center, my job stays here. I don't bring my job home, or at least I try really hard not to bring my job home.
Right.
To try to separate the two so it doesn't drive me insane, so to speak.
And it will.
Yeah.
And
it definitely will. Like nobody calls 911 when they're having a good day.
True.
There's for whatever is going on, that is considered an emergency for the citizen. So even it could be the most ridiculous thing.
That's true.
For them, that is an emergency. So, it's hard when you're first coming into it, trying to, I guess, figure out how to do the separation, because I feel like it is very important to try to separate because once it starts trickling into your home life, that's where it can kind of lead to a disaster.
Oh, for sure. So then I guess, what was it like for you in the beginning when you were first coming in here 5 years ago? I mean, was there anything that surprised you? Or, did you even get to do a sit along, or was it just like, we're throwing you to the lions and you're coming in?
So in a perfect world, they wanted me to be able to do the ride alongs, but I started in the middle of COVID.
Oh, no.
So it was, So it was a little bit different for me with my training.
Yeah.
Compared to like Maddie's training now. Everything for us was virtual. And when we were here, we had to wear masks. When I was training to learn how to dispatch or even call take, I had to be 6 feet apart from my trainer. So I didn't have the hands-on, so to speak, where somebody was actually physically here being like, hey, this is how you do this. So it was a little bit different for me. For my first year, I call took, and then I finally was trained on EMS, and then I could only work EMS for a solid year for 12 hours due to staffing. So it was a little bit of a mental game for a little bit for me, because I am the dark cloud of dispatch. No matter what channel I work.
You're that person. You're the magnet.
I am.
They call me the Black Widow,
yes,
so I get it.
Yes.
I get it.
It's for whatever reason, no matter what channel I'm on, I create chaos, which is fine. I'm just a casual dumpster fire, but it's okay. I got a good personality, so it's all right. But it was a little difficult for me at first starting out, just because I was burnt out. Like, I was burnt out in my first year. And I was like, this cannot be what the rest of my career is going to be like. Because if this is the trend, I don't know if I can mentally stay in. And then finally, COVID started going away and things started rolling. And then I was trained throughout my whole center. And now I'm a trainer, which is great. So it's definitely, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, but it just
that is always good.
Took some time to get there.
Do you feel like that your burnout had to do like a lot with COVID? Because I mean,
Absolutely.
everything was completely different. I mean, folks that I've spoken to leading up to that point and going through it, they're like, man, this is completely different. And anybody coming in during that time is gonna be completely different.
And it was definitely. It was an interesting experience. I'm glad that, Maddie doesn't have to have that experience for herself right now.
Me too.
Because it definitely took a mental toll on me, because working one channel for 12 hours a day is mentally exhausting, or even answering phones for 12 hours a day is mentally exhausting, because, you got people screaming at you when there's a domestic, and then you have people also in, a mental crisis. So it was very difficult to try to relate to them on a personal level, because you had a mask on. So we had a mask on in the center, so everything was already muffled. We kind of sounded like the firefighters when they were on a structure fire. So it was very difficult to try to get, and then, we had a lot of the elderly that are hard of hearing, and they're like, huh? What are you saying? You need my phone number? And I'm like, ooh. Yes, I do. Yep. Can we do? Yep. And it was definitely difficult. But I kept telling myself, this is only temporary. This is only temporary. It will be okay. It will be okay. I don't know how it's going to be okay, but it will be okay. And it did. It did end up, working itself out. And I had, because I started on night shift, and I had a really amazing squad. They were really sweet to me. They were really welcoming. They took me under my belt. It was my first night on shift, and I had my first hanging call. As soon as I sat down, that was my first call, was a mother found her son. So I was like, I took the call, processed it, the whole 9 yards. And then a girl that's no longer here, she looked at me, she said, hey, go take a 10-minute break. And I was like, what do you mean? I just clocked in. Like, I'm all right. And she was like, no, you're not. Go take a 10-minute. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I just clocked in. She was like, it hasn't hit you yet. Take a 10-minute. And I was like, okay. So I asked my supervisor, and she was like, yeah, you're going to go take a 10-minute. I'll come see you in a second. And I was like, all right. So I went outside, took a little walk, and I was like, oh, now I understand. Because my adrenaline was so high during that call that I didn't realize 100%. What was going on. And then when I took that extra 10 minutes just to go outside and process it, I was like, wow, you really came in clutch, essentially, because I would have kept going, been like, oh, I'm fine. But she kind of made me stop and be like, take a moment. You had a really difficult call. That's very emotional. That's very traumatic. You did an amazing job, but you need to take a moment just to kind of process what the heck you just went through. And it's something that I've projected onto my trainees. Like, if you're okay with it, Maddie today had a CPR call. And, we kept encouraging her, telling her, hey, you're doing a great job. I know it's difficult. You're doing fantastic. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, if you need to go step out for, a break, go, because it's hard getting CPR. And I mean, she's had a couple of CPR calls today, or not today, but like
not today,
since she started.
And this one was one of the harder ones, because to me it was obvious death, and it was confirmed that, and it was harder because I knew that, but since the caller reports, there's a chance of help. We're gonna, if they think there's any chance at all, we're gonna.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go through with it. So, yeah, so that it's a lot harder whenever you, especially in those situations where you're trying to help them through, but you know the outlook isn't great. Those are really hard.
And just trying to like stay supportive for the caller to keep them on the line and not let them hit that moment of hysteria is very challenging. But then also reminding yourself that you are human too, and that the caller doesn't want to talk to a robot.
No.
You know, they don't want to talk to a robot. They want to talk to a human, you know, and you need to show empathy as well. And compassion when you're on the phone with them. So, and Maddie, I was listening to Maddie today and I was like, that's my trainee. You go, girl. Like, I was so proud of her because I mean, it was awesome because she did such a good job. She was like, you know, I'm sorry for what's going on with you. Call us back if you need anything. Is there anybody you need us to call for you? You know, you did an amazing job. Because, I mean, nobody plans on doing life-saving measures on their loved ones. So when you're telling somebody to do this, that's traumatic. I mean, it's very scary. So, you know, you're kind of their rock, and essentially, because you're trying to encourage them that you can do this. We're going to do this together, and I will be here for the remaining 5 minutes or however long the call is. But you always think about that caller. It'll always be in the back of your mind. At least I know for me it is.
Yeah. I think that's why conversations like this are important for people, because there's a large chunk of the listeners for the specific podcast that are from the general public. And it's important for them to understand that you're not drones just answering the phone, sending out help. There's way more to it, that even though we sound calm, cool, and collected, and maybe sometimes people think we sound like a robot because our tone is just even, but in the back of our heads, we are freaking out just like you, because we are human.
And it's always after a crazy call like that, your next one will be the polar opposite. My neighbor's dog is barking too loud. And you're just like, I just had to save someone's like husband or daughter, or it's always the silliest.
And you're calling about a barking dog. Like
it always feels like the silliest thing comes right after that. And you have to give them the same level of care as you just gave that person going through like something that's going to change their life forever.
Yes. What I think happens with that is, and I don't know, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but I feel like sometimes we take hard call after hard call after hard call, and however you want to refer it, whether it be the dispatch gods or the dispatch universe, whatever, they throw you something and they're like, you need something different.
Every time.
It's like hard call,
Here's something ridiculous.
Every time.
And they just throw it at you and you're like, okay. I get it. Thank you. I needed this, whatever it might be. Sometimes it might be something completely outrageous and hilarious. And then you're trying not to laugh with the person. Unless they're laughing too, then you're like, hi, you can laugh as well.
It's crazy. Cause like I had a call on nights when this woman called in. She said she wanted to check welfare because she heard a Hispanic male yelling. And she was very adamant about it was a Hispanic male. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how you can tell that by somebody's voice, but all right, here we go. And we sent officers out, and there was no Hispanic male. It was not any bit of that. It was actually a donkey and a llama.
What?
Yelling. Like, I guess communicating to each other, because it was like in somebody's backyard in the county, and you can have those types of animals. And I'm like... And it was actually probably one of the funniest moments because one of my officers ended up getting chased by the donkey while trying to check out the property. And so I hear them on the radio freaking out, being like, I need ASU. I'm being chased by a donkey. But
that is amazing.
Yeah. But I was like, a Hispanic male, and it's actually a donkey just making noise. Alrighty.
That's pretty good.
You're expecting something insane, and it's literally just an animal.
Yeah. I had something similar where this is when I was very first working there in Frostproof. And I was working the morning shift. It was 6:30 in the morning. And there was my neighbors, a big group of Hispanic dudes who they would, I think they picked oranges or something, but every Friday they would all have their own case of booze. And they would sit out in front just playing Mexican music and stuff, just hanging out and grilling. Like there was a couple times where I wanted to go over there like, orale, like, I'm Mexican too, man. Can I join? Like, what's up? But I had to work the next morning, and they were still partying the next morning. And one of the neighbors called, and they called in, and they called on 911, and they said, I need you to send an officer out here because there's this big old group of people out there. They're playing their Mexican music. You know about Mexican music, right? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I said, I'm Mexican. I listen to that music sometimes. And in the back of my head, I was just kind of chuckling. So I was like, I know exactly who she's talking about, the people that she's talking about. And she goes, you know that type of music? And I said, yeah. And she goes, what's your name? And I said, well, my name is Ricardo. And she goes, oh, you don't sound like a Ricardo. And I thought, what?
Yeah, like,
I was like, what do you mean I don't sound like a Ricardo?
Yeah.
Like,
did I miss the memo?
Do I need to throw in some
10-9,
do I have to
please?
throw in some,
10-9,
some
hello?
sort of accent or something?
Say that again?
Like, what? And I just kind of chuckled and I said, okay, ma'am, well, I'll send an officer out. And she goes, you know what? Actually, never mind. The music's not that bad. I kind of, and then hung up and I was like, okay.
Awesome. Even better.
Yes. Yeah. It was hilarious. But also, when you're working in an area that you live in or you grew up in, eventually you're going to take calls from people that you know and or about people that you know. Mm-hmm. And when I had first started out in dispatch and Frostproof, it was New Year's Eve, and I was so excited to go home and spend the New Year with my family. And I ended up getting a phone call, and they're telling me about some loud music and some loud people. And they started describing the house. And I thought, hell no, that's my house. I was like, no. And I said, okay, I'll make sure I'll get somebody out there. And I had to give it out over the air. So I give it out over the air. And almost immediately after it goes out, the chief of police calls up and he goes, Ricardo, isn't that your house? And I said, yes, sir, it is. And he's like, ha, ha. He's like, are you going to call them and give them a heads up? I said, am I allowed to? And he goes, yeah. He goes, let them know. And I said, all right, well, Officer Land is heading out there too. But Officer Land had called me and he goes, isn't that your house? I said, yes, it is. And he just started laughing and hung up on me. So I called and called and called and called and finally got through. And it was my mom. And she goes, hey, are you coming home yet? And I said, I'm almost out. I said, I've got about 30 minutes left. However, you need to turn the radio down right now. And she goes, why? Did somebody, there's an officer here. I got to go. And I was like, oh my gosh.
That's too good.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So
Too good.
Officer Land comes back. And when he comes back, he's just rubbing his stomach as he walks in. And I said, did they feed you? And he goes, Ricardo, your family makes the greatest tamales like this.
He ate your dinner too?
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
He's like, I don't think there's
Amazing.
anything left for you. He goes, but they fed me. And I said, no wonder you stayed out there for so long.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
It's part of the investigation.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, for sure. Now, so in the comparison, 5 years versus 6 months and everything, how do you feel? And Maddie, we'll start with you. How do you feel already like the profession has kind of changed you?
Oh, that's a good question. How has it changed me? We were talking about, I feel like I can impact somebody's, like I'm more commandful without being rude now. Mm-hmm. Like I will say that like I can give commands without yelling or sounding mean. It's just authoritative enough to get somebody to do what they need to do in an emergency.
Right.
And I don't think I was able to do that before. I think I was just too worried about them being mad or upset. And now it doesn't matter if they get upset at me. Mm-hmm. They have to do what I'm telling them to do because it's somebody's life at stake. So,
right.
like, I feel like I've improved a lot on that. Like, I felt a little bit more reserved, and now I can just be like, you need to get them on the ground right now and do this, this, and this now. And it's not as, I'm not worried about them liking me or not. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm trying to be friendly with them so that I can make it through without being mean to the person on the worst day of their life. But it's just enough on that line to get them to do what we need to do. Right.
Yeah, exactly. When you're in this profession, you figure out how to say certain things and have a tone to where you're, like you said, being an authority figure without kind of sounding like you're just being a punk or whatever,
Yeah.
and people are like, okay, I'll do what you got to do. But a lot of times, sometimes you have to be firm because adults don't always take direction well, right?
Children callers are way better at
Yes.
taking direction.
Yes,
way better.
exactly.
So much better.
Right.
Be thankful we haven't gotten my son on the phone, because that's a different ballgame.
Well, Casey, how about you? How do you feel like the profession has changed you?
I'm definitely more confident in myself just overall. When I first started, I was kind of lost. I didn't really know. I've worked a lot of odd jobs, and I've worked since I was 16. So I've worked everything from the service industry to the movie industry to receptionist work. But I never felt like I had my place. I never felt where I actually belonged in anything. And my parents and everybody used to always, encourage me and be like, you need to do something with your typing because you can type really fast. Like, you're great at the computer. And I'm like, I mean, I know I grew up with, AOL dial-up and instant messenger. So I'm pretty good at, making my statuses and stuff. But they always kept telling me, like, you're going to find something one day. You're going to find something one day. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I stumbled across dispatch and I was like, oh, maybe, I passed the typing test.
Yeah.
I can multitask, even though I'm pretty sure I have squirrel brain as I get older.
A lot of us do.
I do feel like I definitely I should probably be medicated, but, it's fine.
It's fine.
But I never really found myself until I came into dispatch.
Yeah.
And then once I got into it, I was like, wow, like I actually found my purpose. Like, not only am I giving back to the community, I'm doing something that I enjoy. I also do get to spend time with my son, and I get to spend time with my family because I'm very,
awesome.
I'm very family oriented. So it's nice because, we work a rotating schedule. So we only work 14 days out of the month unless you want to work overtime. So I get more time with my family than most, 9-to-5 jobs, Monday through Friday. So for me, it was just a massive confidence boost. And it's nice knowing that I also have changed my family's kind of outlook on me as well. Like, the other night, me and my dad were, talking, and he was like, we were talking about if somebody's choking, do you slap them on the back? And the first thing we tell people is, do not slap them on the back. Right. And my dad was like, no, you're supposed to slap them on the back. And I was like, I bet you $20. I'm telling you, this is what I do for a living.
Right.
I'm telling you right now, we do not slap people on the back. So he was like, okay. And so I called, one of my coworkers, and I was like, hey, I'm having a debate with my dad. What's the first thing we tell people when somebody's choking? And he was like, or she was like, don't slap him on the back. I said, Mr. Jones, I was like, Dad, I need Mr. Jones, I need that $20, please. Thank you. And he was like, dang, you really do know your stuff. You really are kind of important. And I was like, yes, Dad, thank you. But it's beating that stigma, so to speak, because my dad's always been very influential in our community, and we make it a point, even growing up, I was always giving back to the community and doing something to benefit the community because you can't make everybody happy unless you focus on the community first and what the community needs.
Yeah.
And
to your point, I think there's two different kinds of callers. Some people think that we are God, FBI, CIA, we are the all-powerful 911.
Right.
And then there's other people that think we're a receptionist.
True.
Yes.
There are just two different kinds of people. And it's so vastly different.
And it's hard to get over that stigma because you're just kind of we're humans. We have feelings. We have emotions. You screaming at me, giving me every racial slur under the book, or you screaming at me because you're having a bad day, it's still not going to fix your problem.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up to be a verbal punching bag either. Now, there's a difference between being a verbal punching bag and then just being a listening ear, because there's sometimes people just need somebody just to talk to, just to vent, which is fine. Go ahead. I would rather you call me all day, every day, than make any kind of impulsive decision to think about ending your life. Like, please call me.
Yes.
I would rather you call me so I can try to I don't know how we're going to help you, but I'm going to get you help. I'm going to give you the resources to keep you around.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so it's just one of those things where it's just kind of like, I wish there was more education with 911 and with first responders. I wish we were also recognized by the state as first responders. That's something that I'm very passionate about, and that I wish we were recognized, because we essentially are the first responders before they get on scene.
Before the field responders.
Well, before the field responders get there, we are the first.
Yes.
And, you know, we are the ones giving the life-saving instructions before the field responders get on scene.
Exactly.
So I wish we were more recognized in that aspect, because our job's not easy. It's mentally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. I mean, we're sitting in a chair for 12 hours. You know, yes, we can stand. Yes, we can do that. But we don't get a standard lunch break. You know, we do get 3 20-minute breaks within a 12-hour period. And in those 20 minutes, you know, some people take a nap, some people go for a walk, but it is physically exhausting. You know, we don't get to, when we're working, we don't get the luxury of a warm cooked meal either. A lot of the time.
So microwaved a lot.
And, you know, and even half the time.
Keep it in your cheek.
Yeah, or even when it's microwaved, I mean, you could have it on your console and you can't touch it for, 30, 45 minutes, depending on what kind of traffic you have. So then it's like the ongoing cycle where you're like, you know what, forget it. I'll just eat when I get off at 7. Because you're just like at this point, or,
right.
You're just.
You've nuked it enough that it's now alive. And it's like, hey, how's it going? It's like, all right.
So it is like, it's one of those things where I really hope that one day the state of North Carolina will go ahead and recognize us, because we're definitely deserving. I mean, I feel like all dispatchers, all telecommunicators in general, should be recognized by their state as first responders, because it's important. And help me out with this.
We're awesome.
Yes.
There you go.
There we go. That's short and sweet, straight to the point. That's the way we like it.
We kill it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's been awesome to have you both on here and hear more about your stories. Your perspective on everything has been excellent. Thank you to the both of you for what you do and being willing to come on as well and share some of your story. Now, I've got one last question for the both of you that I mentioned right before we started recording.
Warned us.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Warned us about.
And so whoever wants to start first. But here's the question, and it doesn't matter the time, whether you've been here a month, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years, whichever. But if you could go back in time and talk to yourself in the beginning, to give yourself some advice, and it's not to change anything, because I feel as though sometimes there are some hard lessons. Sometimes there are some things that we go through that make us who we are today, present time. So just to give yourself some advice, if you go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your dispatch career, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Breathe. Make sure to breathe. Make sure to step back. Make sure to believe in yourself, because that's definitely something that I struggled with in the beginning, was having the confidence that I know what I'm doing. I've been given all the tools, all the resources. I just had to apply it. And I had a really awesome supervisor that kind of mentored me a lot and helped guide me and kind of mold me to who I am now. Mm-hmm. But definitely just making sure to breathe, and it doesn't stay that way forever. Yeah. Any kind of hardship or any kind of struggle, it's only temporary, because there is a light, and it will get better, and you will, progress. You will move up the chain, so to speak. I definitely, seeing where I started to where I am now, it's definitely kind of night and day difference. It was pretty, I got a lot of gray hairs though, but you know, I feel like it comes in with the job, but, but it's definitely, I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I'd finally figured out my place, and knowing what my place is and what my purpose is, it's been one heck of a ride, man. And I'm in it for the long haul. It's gonna be a good time.
I love it. What about you?
So mine would be, and when I say this, it sounds cold, but let me explain.
Okay.
Okay, it's going to sound cold when I say it, so let me explain. I said I cannot be held responsible for what I say.
Okay, yeah.
But
we'll put it on Casey.
Some of the, yes, Casey's fault.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So the best advice I was given, and it was given to me very recently, and I wish I would have heard it from the beginning, because when I first heard it, it changed everything on how I do this job. They don't know what they need. You know what they need. Mm-hmm. And that sounds cold, but they might, like when we first asked them, do you need police, fire, EMS? They might say, send them all. Or like, I need this, I need that. You need to slow down, because I had a big problem with going too fast, because I just felt I was new to it. So I was like, this is urgent. This needs to be put in. If you slow down, it could help them a lot more than if you're just rushing through everything, because it is urgent, but like slowing down just a little bit can help them a lot. Figure out what they need for them. Take what happened. You're trained so vigorously and so for so long for a reason. They're not trained the way you're trained. You need to figure out what they need. Don't just freak out and just like, well, they said they needed this, so they're getting it. Like, that was a really good advice that I had like not too long ago that really changed everything. It was just, you know what they need. They might not know what they need.
And it's kind of something kind of to piggyback off of that. So we were one of the centers that was the backup center for Western Carolina during Hurricane Helene. Mm-hmm. So I was actually on shift that day, and it was probably one of the most overwhelming, traumatic experience I've had in dispatch, in the sense of I knew what those people needed, and I could not do anything for them. Mm-hmm. That was something that was very traumatic for me in the sense, because it was a weather disaster, and there was nothing we could have done to help those people. But part of like the instruction is, I don't know when somebody's coming. Mm-hmm. Just take higher ground and essentially just pray. Like, that's all I can tell you. And telling those citizens that was probably one of the most gut-wrenching experiences of my life, because like I was getting calls for, family members getting swept away in floodwaters. I was getting, I had one, an elderly woman that climbed all the way to the attic of her house, and the water was rising, and she said, I know I'm going to die, but I do not want to die alone. And so she stayed, and then her phone disconnected on me. So like, and then I had other calls with like trees and falling on top of houses and killing people. And like, it was awful. I mean, that was the first 30 minutes of the storm essentially hitting Western North Carolina. And I think that day we answered like, I don't know the exact number, but I know it was between 800 to 900 calls. And it was very overwhelming, because there was one point when we were looking at our phone screen and it was just constant 911 calls coming in. But we had 30 to 50 calls in like queue. And then we had so many abandoned calls. Like, it was just pages and pages and pages of phone numbers. And like, we couldn't call them back because they didn't have any power. So we couldn't. So it was one of those things where like in that day specifically, I felt extremely helpless. So it's one of those, so like just kind of to put the different perspective on that, where it's like, you have the one perspective where it's like, I know what to send you. I know how to help you. I have the resources. I can do it. But then having the other perspective of, I don't have the resources. I can't help you. Like, I can take your call, but there's nothing I can do. I can't get you help because I don't know when the help is going to be there. I don't know. Like, at that point, telling people that, the fire department can't respond because it's unsafe for them to go out is one of the most gut-wrenching things I've ever had to experience. But I'm so thankful in the same token that I got to experience it, because when we did our debriefing, we actually got to speak to the director of Buncombe County. And she said that a lot of, and we also went out and assisted with the relief. A lot of the members of our center went and helped. But it said, one of the dispatchers said that us helping them by answering their phone calls was a relief for them, because we took the pressure off of them for answering their family. And because they don't know if they could have handled taking the calls for their family members that were dealing with that traumatic experience, which was something that has stuck with me since. I was like, dang, like, you're right. Like, I don't know if my family was in that situation. Like, when we got hit with Florence, I wasn't here yet, but if my family stayed and I had to be here and work, and then I get a call, like those types of calls, I don't know how that would mentally affect me. So I did essentially help them, because I took that weight off of their shoulders. Just a different perspective on it.
I love both perspectives, but especially with yours too, for anyone who's new, who's coming in and having that. As you were saying that, I didn't think about, like, I think I was the same way, because when you're first in there in the beginning, it's like, yeah, everything is urgent, go. And you do have to take a step back. You do have to slow down. But then on the other side, when you've gone through it and you're going through a situation where, like you were saying, you don't have those resources or something, I don't have anything to compare to that. The only thing that I remember in dispatch, even in like 2011, 2012, when like Rapid SOS or any of those other things are not there, and you have people and state game area who are lost, and you lose the phone call, and you can't call them back, and you can't ping them or find any location, that is a gut punch to your mental health and wellness, because now who knows whatever happened to them? You never know. So different perspectives all around and different things. And I thank you, both of you, for being on, for the job that you do. And this has been awesome. Man, this was like 45 minutes. It didn't even feel like it. And I could have just...
Dang.
I could have. No. Hey, no. This was good. Like I could talk to you both for forever. I feel like I could have been one of your coworkers as well. But either way,
we're hiring.
We're always hiring.
Yeah.
I appreciate you both for being on. And if you can hang tight for one moment, for everyone who is listening right now and watching, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email me, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. But you can find all the information on links.co/WTT podcast. That's links with 2 I's. .co/WTT podcast. This episode has been sponsored by In Digital, a leader next gen core services. And you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and within the trenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one.